Domestic violence touches every part of community, every demographic group, every income level, every profession there is gets touched by domestic violence. A lot of people would have been trapped in some really horrible circumstances without CODA. I think there would have been more deaths without CODA. Every year at the candlelight vigil, I used to always say that our commitment to the dead is to make a commitment to the living, to keep names off that list. And I think CODA has kept names off that list. Sorry.
I was 9 months pregnant. I ended up at CODA 4 days before I had my son. And I was in a very dangerous situation.
When Lindsay came, she had called. She was very scared and nervous because she was worried about the baby. She wanted to get to a safe place.
If I hadn't been at CODA, my son would have been taken by DCS at the hospital. But because I was at CODA and I had a safe place to bring him, they allowed me to keep him. I was at the emergency shelter for 5 months. Everything that I had was left at the place that I came from.
The clients, whenever they come to CODA, a lot of them think that they might have to pay. They don't have to pay nothing. We provide washers, dryers, they can do laundry, hygiene products, we get clothes for them, we have food for them.
Shannon was the shelter director when I came into CODA. She was very understanding, very supportive, and had huge compassion for my situation.
We kept on reassuring her and giving her hope and tell her just to believe in herself and that she was going to be able to do it.
While I was at CODA, I began outpatient treatment through Next Step. I completed that program and I began working at Next Step. So I have a dual role as a medication coordinator and a peer recovery coach. I'm currently going to Ivy Tech, working on my medical assistant certification.
I just can't imagine having a newborn and raising a baby in a shelter.
From the situation that I came from, that was a blessing to be at the shelter with him. It really was, because if we hadn't have been there, he would not have been able to stay with me and I would have went back to dangerous situation. So yeah, some people might look at having a newborn at a shelter as a bad thing, but it was a lifesaver for us.
CODA started in 1985 when some concerned women in Terre Haute came together because they saw a need that was not being met. At the beginning of the organization, it was all volunteer all the time. CODA was in units of the Terre Haute Housing Authority. Without the Terre Haute Housing Authority, CODA would not exist. We also need to thank Redevelopment, who helped us build that first shelter, I believe in the early 90s, which was built as a residence but turned into a shelter. Over the next decade, CODA expanded into educational services, that CODA goes into the schools to give healthy relationships courses and counseling to students, and to the courthouse staff to help shepherd people through the very scary process that is the criminal justice system.
I found out about CODA through the police officer who had done a report.
The first time I talked to Parita, I think she had already talked to the investigator on her case.
They had directed me towards CODA and said that mostly it was for domestic violence and that they help people in my situation.
The first thing we did for Parita was helped her file for a protective order.
There was a lot of support in just the beginning process of it that I needed to actually do the things to help me and my children out. From the get-go, I think Holly's been so supportive. Just having someone there who's maybe been through the process and just guiding you and giving you the strength to do it all. Just navigating the legal system is ruthless when you have no background in it. But I think that's where CODA helps a lot. Your advocate will be there, will guide you in the right direction, and that's the most important thing, is the guidance you need.
We can help with filing for protective orders. We help file for divorces. We go to court all the time. Anytime someone has a court hearing, we will be at that hearing with you.
That's the hardest part, is vocalizing for yourself and advocating for yourself. But when you have an advocate sitting there fighting almost harder than you when you can't fight for yourself, I think that's the biggest thing that I've received out of this, honestly.
CODA is the only organization in our region that provides domestic violence and sexual assault services. We're the only ones. We run mostly based on federal and state grant funding, but that funding can go just as quickly as it comes. To have the support of our community is absolutely the most important thing for CODA to continue on.
I came from Southern Illinois. I had been severely beaten. My sister, her husband, and their boyfriend brutally beat me one day. I remember crawling out of my sister's house, knowing that the beating that I had incurred was extremely violent, which I have experienced multiple times. This time it felt worse. So I went to the hospital to try to get help. I asked the police, where am I supposed to go if I can't go home? And he said the homeless people stay at the park. So I went to the park. Probably a month after the injury, and I'm homeless, I realized that I qualify for services because I'm a victim of crime by APS. They helped me with a hotel room for a week and 2 days, and they gave me a 5-page pamphlet of homeless shelters in Illinois. I called every single one of them. I did not qualify for services because of a previous charge from 2016. I forget who it was that I called. They said, have you tried for CODA? It's not in Illinois, but it's a domestic abuse place. And I thought, oh, Jesus. Certainly there's no way they're gonna be able to help. I called, and I remember desperately trying to explain my situation with a fresh traumatic head injury. I didn't understand that I came from familiar trafficking. I couldn't express in words to communicate what my problem was. I was groomed not to ask for help, so it was extremely difficult. And I remember what it felt like when you said all I had to do was get to you. All I had to do was survive long enough to get to you. APS paid for me a bus ticket. And I've been in CODA ever since. Now it was 2 years and 6 months.
The first time I met April, it was actually my first day of internship. She had arrived to the shelter, I think a week prior to me starting my internship. And we just clicked. And once I was hired on, she became one of my clients. And just meeting with her weekly for case management, we just grew the bond that we have today. I helped April with starting the process with her Social Security disability, find the doctors that she needed to see, find a therapist that she can talk to and trust. I also helped her fill out housing applications and put her in touch with MHA.
It's because of my case manager that I have a place to call home.
So April was able to get her permanent housing through Mental Health of America.
I got to sign my lease on the 31st of December. That was a surprise for me. I got to start this new year with a home. I was able to give gratitude for what CODA had done for me.
As much as she wants to say that it was CODA that helped get her to where she needed to be, it was her. It was her dedication and willingness to be out in the world.
What they gave me is so much more. Because when I would get done at the end of the day to go lay my head down, I was safe. I wasn't getting raped, beaten. I wasn't going to bed hungry. Instead, I got given the gift of life.
With your help, CODA has provided services that have saved lives in our community for 40 years. And with your support, we can make it another 40. Consider making a donation to CODA today.